liberal people who think the left has gone a little mad with trans issues. Some have expressed that opinion with literary sophistication, like J.K. Rowling. Some by getting big laughs, like Dave Chappelle. And some are downright ugly about it, like Linehan. But ugly is the price of a freedom so great as speech. Get this, Saudi Arabia is having a comedy festival this month. Really, Saudi Arabia. It's gonna be great. If you on stage, you get 72 virgins. And Chappelle is performing. If you told me years ago that Saudi Arabia would be cool to have Dave Chappelle speak and England might arrest him, I would have said, "What are you smoking?"
So, if you think the attacks on J.K. Rowling and free speech are dying down, think again. In recent weeks, a new wave has hit the Harry Potter author over her views louder, harsher, and more intense than ever. But then Bill Maher stepped in, a longtime defender of free speech, tearing into the arguments with sharp wit, blunt logic, and perfectly timed humor. So hit subscribe, and let's get started.
Was that the most powerful witch hunters now were coming from Twitter, the Ivy League, and the progressive left. J.K. Rowling used to be a villain to the right because she wrote books about witchcraft. Now she's a villain to the left because she has the crazy belief that there's more to being a woman than pronouns and lipstick. So that was the point of the evening. How do we take a stand against cancel culture?
Maher opens by explaining exactly why the attacks on J.K. Rowling have suddenly intensified. According to him, nothing fundamental has changed except one inconvenient reality. Rowling refuses to give in. She continues to stand by her view that biological sex matters, that it has real implications for women's sports and women's spaces, and that these topics deserve open discussion rather than being treated as taboo. In today's cultural climate, that stance alone is labeled unacceptable. Online activists have once again ramped up the pressure to cancel her, hoping that enough outrage, insults, and coordinated pile-ons will finally push her into silence. But Maher isn't persuaded. Instead of condemning Rowling, he praises her resolve, pointing out how rare it is for a public figure to endure non-stop backlash and still refuse to back down. To Maher, Rowling represents something increasingly rare, someone willing to take the blows, hold her ground, and speak her mind even when the crowd demands conformity.
There's plenty of non-crazy people, liberal people, who think the left has gone a little mad with trans issues. Some have expressed that opinion with literary sophistication, like J.K. Rowling. Some by getting big laughs, like Dave Chappelle. And some are downright ugly about it, like Linehan. But ugly is the price of a freedom so great as speech. Trump tried to disappear someone for writing an anti-Israel op-ed in a student newspaper, which I found offensive, but I still would go to the mat for that person to be able to print it. And we can fight Trump on this because we have a First Amendment.
Over the past decade, many people have paid a heavy price simply for expressing their views, and many are still paying it now. Careers have been stalled, reputations damaged, and livelihoods threatened through online outrage and public shaming. Maher argues this is a dangerous path for any society to take. In his view, people should be free to air their opinions without constant fear of professional or social destruction. Free speech, he says, only has meaning when it protects unpopular, uncomfortable, and dissenting ideas, not just the ones that are socially approved. That doesn't mean all speech is harmless or beyond criticism. Some remarks can be offensive, reckless, or even criminal. But Maher draws a firm boundary. When speech crosses into illegality, it should be handled by the law, not by online mobs. Justice belongs in courts, not in viral campaigns driven by outrage and moral posturing.
To the individuals and organizations who others have tried to silence and who answered, "That's not a rule." Our first award goes to the president of my alma mater, Cornell University, Martha Pollack. This month, students there demanded trigger warnings before all the lectures in case any of the adult subjects you specifically went to college to learn about came up. And Martha said, yeah, no, we're not doing that. She didn't cave in or hire a new dean of sensitivity. She just said, no, college is for introducing you to new ideas, not for kissing your ass and making you feel wonderful and always right.
Notably, J.K. Rowling wasn't the only person caught in the sights of cancel culture. Maher also pointed to the case of a Cornell University lecturer who refused to trade free speech for student comfort. When pushed to censor language labeled offensive, the lecturer held his ground, arguing that discomfort is not the same as harm and that universities exist to challenge ideas, not shield students from them. Citing the First Amendment, he told students plainly that encountering words they dislike is part of life in a free society. College, he said, is not a refuge from reality but preparation for it. As expected, backlash followed, with critics calling for apologies, resignations, and punishment. Maher, however, sided with the lecturer, applauding the refusal to back down. To him, the episode neatly exposes a modern campus problem. A generation taught that personal offense outranks constitutional principles, and that silencing speech is somehow a moral triumph.
Trader Joe's, who for years have been selling a line of ethnically themed products, trading on the name Joe. For example, they have Trader Jose's beer. So, of course, one teenager on Twitter heard the word Jose and said it was racist, and then there was a petition, and then Trader Joe's management did the right thing. They burnt down all their stores. No, they didn't. They said, F you oversensitive little shit.
Cancel culture is no longer aimed only at individuals. It has expanded to target institutions and entire companies. The moment a brand strays from the latest ideological line, the outraged machine roars to life. Hashtags explode, boycotts are threatened, and activists demand public confessions of guilt. Not long ago, this strategy worked almost every time. Companies rushed to issue apologies, fire employees, and announce vague internal reviews to calm the backlash. But Maher argues something has changed. The fear is starting to fade. More companies are realizing that giving in never truly satisfies the mob, it only guarantees the next attack. Instead of panicking, some are choosing to stand firm, refusing to apologize for invented offenses, or abandon their principles under pressure. This growing resolve signals a quiet but meaningful cultural shift. When institutions stop rewarding outrage, the power of cancellation weakens, and the mob is left shouting into the void.
In Germany, a guy called a politician a Pimmel, which is the German word for and it triggered a police raid. What a Pimmel move. A guy from North Yorkshire in Britain faced 2 years in prison for wearing a Halloween costume depicting the terrorist who bombed the Ariana Grande concert. Bad taste? Yeah, bad taste is the whole point of Halloween.
You might assume the United States is the worst when it comes to free speech until you look beyond its borders. What's happening globally puts the issue into sharp perspective. In many countries, speaking freely isn't merely controversial, it's genuinely dangerous. Even across parts of Europe, speech laws are tightening, with people fined, investigated, or arrested for saying the wrong thing online. In much of Asia, restrictions are even harsher. Criticizing the government, questioning official narratives, or challenging authority can bring severe consequences. In some regimes, dissent doesn't just cost you a job or a platform, it can cost you your freedom, or worse. Journalists and activists face serious risks, while ordinary citizens learn to censor themselves just to get by. Maher's point is stark but clear: free speech is rare, fragile, and easily lost. Once a society decides certain ideas are too dangerous to hear, it's already on the path to silencing everyone.
This Scottish man was found guilty of hate speech for a YouTube video where he taught his pug to salute when he said Sieg Heil.
Sieg Heil. Sieg Heil.
Elon Musk watched it and said, I don't see it. But, you know, Musk, Kanye, this dog, they're all wrong, and they all have the right to be wrong.
Maher delivers a blunt message to the perpetually outraged crowd, and it one they don't like to hear. People, he says, have the right to be wrong, and more importantly, the right to express views others disagree with. That isn't a weakness of free speech, it's the very definition of it. Maher argues that disagreement is not violence, discomfort is not danger, and offense is not oppression. Yet modern outrage culture collapses all three into the same category. He warns that the moment people believe their personal beliefs should be imposed on everyone else, free expression collapses fast. No individual or group, he insists, should have the authority to police language, decide what can be said, or silence opposing views simply because they object to them. A truly free society requires tolerance, not endorsement tolerance for ideas we dislike. Without that, Maher argues, what remains isn't progress or justice, but a brittle culture held together by fear, conformity, and enforced silence.
Britain is now considering the so-called pub law. Okay, it's not just about pubs. It's a workplace bill aimed at preventing any kind of harassment in the workplace, including verbal remarks overheard. Okay, problem is, a pub is a workplace. So's a bookstore. Would a major chain like Waterstones risk hosting a book signing by a controversial author like J.K. Rowling? And pubs? People go to pubs for two reasons: to drink and to exercise their inalienable right to talk.
What cancel culture and the perpetually outraged refuse to accept is a basic human truth. Silencing people doesn't eliminate their beliefs, it compresses them. When individuals aren't allowed to express their views openly, that pressure doesn't vanish. It builds, simmers, and often turns more resentful, more extreme, and more unstable. Maher argues that people need an outlet, a place to vent, to speak freely, without the constant threat of punishment or exile. Open discourse acts as a pressure valve. It allows bad ideas to be challenged, exposed, mocked, or dismantled in public instead of festering in private echo chambers. When that release is taken away, those bottled-up views don't suddenly improve, they harden. And eventually they can spill out in destructive ways, fueling extremism, social unrest, or fierce backlash. History repeats this lesson again and again. Suppression doesn't produce harmony, it breeds resentment. Free speech, however messy, remains society's safest release valve.
They're not in the House of Lords. They're in a bar called the Drunken Cock. Any Brit will tell you the food is awful, the weather sucks, but at least you can call each other a cunt. And now that's gone? It's like making a rule at the dog park: no ass sniffing.
Maher argues that Britain, in particular, needs to ease up on its strict policing of speech and allow people to express their opinions openly. Suppressing expression, he says, doesn't make dangerous ideas disappear, it only drives them underground. When people can speak freely, society gains insight into what they're truly thinking, feeling, and believing. That transparency matters. Maher suggests that open speech can even act as an early warning system, helping identify real threats before they escalate into serious social problems. People often signal their intentions through words long before actions follow, and it's nearly impossible to completely separate thought from speech. When expression is forced underground, authorities are left reacting after the fact, guessing at what's brewing. Free speech, messy, uncomfortable, and imperfect, lets patterns emerge, grievances be aired, and warning signs surface early. In Maher's view, protecting free expression isn't reckless, it's practical, preventative, and far safer than enforced silence.
Get this, Saudi Arabia is having a comedy festival this month. Really, Saudi Arabia. It's gonna be great. If you on stage, you get 72 virgins. And Chappelle is performing. If you told me years ago that Saudi Arabia would be cool to have Dave Chappelle speak and England might arrest him, I would have said, "What are you smoking?"
Ironically, even some countries long known for strict control over speech are beginning to ease up. There is growing recognition, even in tightly regulated societies, that open expression isn't the threat it was once portrayed to be. Maher highlights Saudi Arabia as a striking example. The kingdom moved to invite outspoken comedians and performers. Those who push boundaries and poke fun at social norms signals a subtle but meaningful shift. Comedy, after all, depends on honesty, exaggeration, and discomfort. Allowing that kind of expression shows an understanding that laughter and critique don't automatically lead to chaos. What makes this moment so striking, Maher notes, is the contrast. While some traditionally restrictive societies cautiously open up, many Western countries seem to be tightening rules around speech, treating dissent more carefully. The historical irony is clear. Nations that once championed free expression now appear uneasy with it, while others are slowly realizing its value. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this.